Local and draft experts on some of the top prospects in the upcoming NBA draft. No one else is going to have a show like this one. It's the Friday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Friday episode of Locked On Pelicans, and we got a show that only Locked On can do. I'm going to play you clips from our draft experts, our college experts, on some of, not all of, but some of, most of the top 15 NBA prospects in the draft here. You're going to get their perspective on this. If you just need one show to catch up on most of the draft prospects, tell your friends at work, your buddies around, on a round of golf, you know all about the prospects. This is the show for you. So thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the number one Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So let's get into this. We're going to go through them in order of the Locked On NBA draft, or the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. I'm going by Rafael Barlow's rankings. We're going to go 1 through not quite 15. I don't have clips for all of the top 15 guys, but the majority of them here. So we're going to run through 15 prospects, kind of rapid fire. I'm going to tell you their NBA comp and what their swing skill is. And the swing skill is, if this hits, they're going to be a good player. They will for sure be a good player. There might be other reasons why they don't work out if they don't hit this or become good without this. But this is kind of like the key skill for these guys, that could make or break them. We know what their top skills are. This is the type of thing that really sets them over the edge. So let's just jump into it. We'll start with Cooper Flagg. Let's go.
Cooper Flagg is the best player in this NBA draft, period. I'm JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils, here to tell you why the hype is justified for this soon-to-be number one pick in the draft. Cooper Flagg, great size, 6'9", over 200 pounds. Flagg can hold up physically down low while maintaining his perimeter fluidity. His jump shot is pure, especially from the mid-range, and his ability to both catch and shoot and isolate make him adaptable in all situations. His experience with Team USA last summer prior to the Paris Olympics, before he ever even played college basketball, was invaluable and had NBA personnel already salivating over what the pride of Maine was going to be. Flagg's motor is high, and the defensive chops of a winner he's got, averaging a block and a half and a steal and a half per game while playing at Duke and leading them in every offensive category. Cooper Flagg is one of the rare prospects with automatic Hall of Fame potential. The only question is who's going to be lucky enough to draft him first overall. Cooper Flagg is the real deal. He is the main event. For more Duke basketball news and notes, make sure you check out Locked On Blue Devils.
So that was clearly recorded before the lottery here, because the Mavs are taking him, and that's super annoying. You'll hear more from JJ Jackson as we cover a couple of more Duke prospects in today's episode here. Look, we're not going to spend a ton of time on some of these top guys here. Cooper Flagg's NBA comps are Andre Kirilenko or Scottie Pippen on the high end. His swing skill is ball handling. He does need to improve in that area. He can sometimes not have the best handle for some self-creation, but overall, you're nitpicking if you don't like Cooper Flagg. It's as simple as that. Let's next go to Dylan Harper, who's number 2 on the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. It's big board.
Dylan Harper would be considered a lock to go number 1 in almost any other NBA draft. He has that kind of upside. I'm Andy Patton, co-host of the Locked On College Basketball podcast. Harper is a 6'6" guard with elite scoring instincts, averaging nearly 20 points per game in the talent-rich Big Ten Conference. Yes, Rutgers was not very good last year, but do not let that fool you. Harper has future NBA All-Star written all over him. Harper can get to his spots with ease. His athleticism absolutely plays up at the next level. He is also a gifted passer and a strong defensive player. And while the outside shot could use some fine tuning, most believe he will find his way into becoming an above average 3-point shooter as well. Harper is not just a consolation prize for missing out on Cooper Flagg. He is an elite prospect in his own right who should be a fixture in the NBA for years to come.
There you go. He's Cade Cunningham. His swing skill is shooting. If that shot really starts to fall, that dude's going to be so good, and I would love him on New Orleans. Let's go to Ace Bailey, who's number 3 on Locked On NBA Big Board's Big Board.
Ace Bailey is a phenomenal talent, but due to some parts of his game that need refinement, is it worth spending a top 5 pick on a player who's not ready to be a bona fide star from day one? That's the question that teams picking 2 through 5 in the draft after Cooper Flagg goes number 1 are going to have to answer. There's also the why wasn't Rutgers better with 2 top 5 draft picks question. Now, as for Ace Bailey, he can pull up from anywhere and hit anything. His talent as a shot maker is one of the best coming out of the college ranks that I've seen in a long time. His size and length and athleticism scream prototypical NBA wing, but Bailey has a lot of growth when it comes to decision-making and handling the basketball. To balance his offensive giftedness, I was impressed by the strides and desire Bailey took defensively in his lone year at Rutgers. Those physical, God-given attributes should translate to great success defensively if he continues to apply himself. There's also the potential for playing multiple positions in this positionless age, which is great when that person is 6'10", 210. If Bailey can become a more consistent shooter, make better decisions, grow in his handle, and keep making strides defensively, the sky's the limit.
Ace Bailey is going to be a really interesting prospect to see where he ends up in this draft. Could go 3, could go like 7, potentially, and fall to New Orleans, depending on how teams really view him. I think on the high end, you're looking at Michael Porter Jr., like a fully healthy Michael Porter Jr. as his NBA comp, which is a great player. The swing skill really is shot selection, which I don't know if that's so much a skill or is just something he needs to improve, but also defense. He's got to try more on the defensive side of the ball. Next up, at number 4 on the big board here is actually Jeremiah Fears, a name that a lot of people really like. Let's get the scouting report on him.
Jeremiah Fears will be a star in the NBA. This is John Williams of Locked On Sooners. Fears came to Norman as a reclassified true freshman, playing in the toughest basketball conference in the nation during what should have been his senior season of high school. Fears helped lead the Sooners to their first NCAA tournament berth since 2020-2021, while averaging 17.1 points per game, 4.1 assists, and 1.6 steals to lead the Oklahoma Sooners. A dynamic point guard who thrives with the ball in his hands, Jeremiah Fears is quick off the dribble and possesses elite speed. He's excellent getting into the paint and fantastic at finishing around the rim. He's a day one starter who's going to have a long career in the NBA, leading his franchise to a number of playoff berths, and he's going to make that team and that fan base very, very happy. Jeremiah Fears is set to be a star in the NBA.
We'll do a deeper dive on Jeremiah Fears at a later date on the show, but his NBA comp, I think on the high end could be Jamal Murray. That's a really great player to put on New Orleans. Swing skills are decision-making. There's a few too many turnovers from him and some like lacking there. And look, he's so young. That's something that's almost certainly going to improve. The other swing, more skill type thing is shooting. He's got to get that shot to fall, but he'll be able to make an impact even without that. Number 5, Tre Johnson of Texas.
Tre Johnson is a walking bucket. What's up, guys and gals? BK with Locked On Longhorns here, telling you about maybe the best scorer in this year's draft. Tre Johnson, as a true freshman, led the SEC in scoring a season ago, averaging close to 20 points per game. Remember, the SEC, the best conference in college basketball history this past year. Tre Johnson stood alone atop the league. He is a true 3-level scorer. He can hit threes. He can make from the mid-range. He can slash and finish at the 10 as well. He's also a great free throw shooter to boot. This game has always been about getting buckets, and Tre Johnson can get you some buckets. He's an emotional player. He wears his heart on his sleeve, but man, when he gets hot, he is tough to stop, and he is going to make one fan base very, very happy at the next level. For more on the Texas Longhorns, subscribe to Locked On Longhorns on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. His NBA comp is Tyler Hero. He needs to work on defense. We're making these real simple here, but Tre Johnson's a guy that's also going to be interesting. He's one-dimensional. There's some lead guard upside there, though, too. He could fall to New Orleans at 7, and at that point, I think you do need to take him. But after the top 5, it gets open and interesting. We got some interesting people on the Locked On NBA Big Board here. We're going to look at all of them. Coming up, 5 more prospects, and then 5 more after that with analysis you can't get anywhere else from the people who watch them all year long. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performance. Oh boy, did it in that Knicks and Pacers game one. Big momentum shifts, can't miss moments, whether it's a game-winning or game-tying shot, a breakout player, 40 points for Tyrese Haliburton. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live after tip-off. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more way than ever to play smart and win big. You want to take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to get more than 7.5 free throws? You can do that with the player props. 30 or more points and 10 assists. You can do a same-game parlay that way too, or maybe just want the spread, -7.5. So with all these big moments, it's going to be even more interesting with FanDuel. What about $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement? If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube. For your second listen, it better be the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast because we're using their rankings here. Make sure you know what's going on with the NBA draft. Let's keep getting to it with all the clips we want to play in today's show. I don't have a clip for number 6, but it's VJ Edgecombe. So we're going to skip him and go to 7 on our Locked On NBA Big Board, and that is Khaman Maluach from Duke. Let's go back to JJ Jackson from Duke, Locked On Duke, who I'm probably going to have on the show soon.
Khaman Maluach is a terrifying big man with paint menace labeled all over him. I'm JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils, here to tell you why Khaman Maluach is worth a lottery selection in the upcoming NBA draft. The first thing about Khaman is obviously his size. At 7'2", he's literally one of the biggest players in the entire draft process and will be one of the biggest players in the entire NBA. This size does not make him lumbering, however. He moves with enough pace to outmaneuver his competitors down low, making him primed to be a great defensive player in the NBA. While his shot blocking numbers were not through the roof at Duke, expect him to continually improve on the art of the block and be a multiple blocks a game type player in the league. Offensively, Khaman is still learning different aspects, but it's a great sign when he's able to shoot 77% from the foul line, given his size. As he grows more confident and aware of his size, he'll begin stuffing smaller players in the rim with potential to find some mid-range jumpers at some point in his career as well. Khaman Maluach can be a menace in the paint, and his potential is there to match his incredible size. For more Duke basketball news and notes, make sure you check out Locked On Blue Devils.
All right, Maluach has like a Rudy Gobert, Mitchell Robinson type of NBA comp. His swing skill is shooting. Like, he has actually flashes of being a good court spacer. It's going to take a while to get there, but if he can do that, he's already going to be pretty good, I think, in the NBA. If he can become a shooter, oh boy, watch out. We're going back to Locked On Blue Devils. So he's at 7. 8 is Noah Sengwa. I don't have a video for him. We're going to go 9 is Derek Queen here. 10 is Kon Knueppel. Let's go back over to Locked On Blue Devils for more.
Kon Knueppel is a wing that will be able to do anything he wants to at the next level. I'm JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils, here to tell you why Kon Knueppel is worth more attention than he's receiving. A lot of things probably went undernoticed about Kon this past season while playing for such a great team. For starters, Kon is actually great size for a wing in the NBA. At 6'7", about 220 pounds. There's really no weakness in his game whatsoever. On a lesser team, he could have easily scored 20 points a game, and he'll likely do that in the NBA. He's a terrific shooter. He's good in the mid-range and has a good judge of when to go to the basket. His 91% shooting from the foul line was amongst the best in the entire country, and there's hardly a time where you felt like he was shooting the basketball too much. And at times throughout the season, Duke fans wanted him to shoot more. With his size, he should be able to hold his own defensively. The only question being his quickness, which again, one could consider underrated. Overall, Kon Knueppel could ultimately be one of the best players in this draft, and especially offensively, where he has no weaknesses. For more Duke basketball news and notes, make sure you check out Locked On Blue Devils.
Kon Knueppel said his NBA comp is Klay Thompson. Not quite the same size and defensive effort there, but you can kind of actually see what he's going with. He's gonna his floor is really high in the NBA, I think. His swing skill is going to be on-ball defense. Really good off-ball defender and help defender, but he needs to be a better on-ball defender. But I think he of some of the guys that we are going to be looking at in this range is like most likely to stick at the NBA level for a really long time. So he's 10th on the big board. 11 is Igor Demine. We don't have a video on him, but we talked a lot about him recently. 12 is someone we talked about yesterday. That's Maxime Raynaud. Let's take a look at his scouting report.
Maxime Raynaud is a legit 7-footer with an all-around game that can make NBA front offices salivate. But somehow the Frenchman from Stanford, despite being 7'1", is wildly overlooked. How about this? Just one player in all of Division I last year averaged a 20-point, 10-rebound double-double, and his name is Maxime Raynaud. He profiles as a pick-and-pop 5 due to his high-level screening and knocking down just shy of 35% of his career threes at Stanford. But it's not just the outside. Raynaud has the ability to attack closeouts and get to the rim and finish. Growth is needed on the defensive side where he is solid, but not an elite athlete. And that's going to force him to play drop coverage, which should be an issue against NBA pick and roll games. Now, given his size, you would expect more rim protection, but Raynaud's career block rate in college was just 3.5%. All the same, Raynaud's size and game are tantalizing enough that I expect him to hear his name called on night 1 of the NBA draft.
He's a really interesting prospect. I've seen Brook Lopez as his NBA comp. I've seen some with Alperen Şengün. While he's a good passer, I don't know if he's going to be an offensive hub like that. Swing skills are ball handling. He turns it over too much and makes some really bad passes, I think. And if you're looking for him to be an offensive hub, you can't really have that, I think, when it comes to it. And there are big questions of whether his defensive impact, you heard the block percentage right there, not be great, is going to translate to the NBA level. All right, that is your 12th best prospect. 13 here is Kasparas Jakucionis out of Illinois. Let's get his scouting report.
Let me tell you why Kasparas Jakucionis might be the sleeper of the NBA draft. My name is Sonny Verma, your host at Locked On Illini, and let me tell you a little bit about Kasparas. Kasparas was one of the best players in the entire country for the first 2 months of the season, carrying this Illinois team to 22 wins on the season. He did have an injury about 3/4 of the way through and didn't quite recover from that. But if you're looking for a 6'4.5" point guard with size, poise, and ice in his veins, you can't do much better than Kasparas. Sure, his game is not flashy, but it brings you results. I'll tell you, any NBA team is going to be very lucky to draft Kasparas.
You know, he's one that I go back and forth on. Decent size as a guard. I don't know if he's exactly a lead guard necessarily. You know, his NBA comps are Spencer Dinwiddie, Goran Dragic. You know, I think the thing he needs to improve the most is going to be NBA decision making. Some of the passes he make, you look at him and you're like, what are you doing? And I don't know if Illini fans love him as a player and didn't quite lead them to the way that, they maybe thought he was going to do, but still good size. He's going to get drafted near the end of the lottery, I think, for sure. Next up after Jakucionis here, you've got Nolan Traore at 14. You have Rasheer Fleming. I don't have videos on these guys at 15. And then 16 is Colin Murray-Boyles, someone I am pretty high on. Let's get the scouting report.
This is a top-heavy draft, but Colin Murray-Boyles from South Carolina may be the most underrated player in this year's draft. Not just because of how good he is and the things he does that other players don't do in this draft specifically, but also because of the fact that he's still so young and the ceiling is still so high. Personally, a little biased here, obviously, covering South Carolina sports, but the things that are most impressive about him, one, he is the best defensive player in this draft. I don't think that's really super up for debate. There's a lot of teams that have scores. There's not a lot of teams that have a defensive presence as good as this kid can be. And he did it in a team that was one of the worst, if not the worst, in the entire SEC. Never gave up, never stopped playing, still gave a ridiculous amount of effort and intensity on every single night. That was shown, obviously, from him scoring double-digit points and averaging 17 points per game over his final 17 games this season. He scored double-digit in 16 of those 17 games. Also had 10 double-doubles on the year. Was phenomenal down the stretch, even though South Carolina was completely out of playoff contention. Saw him in the SEC basketball tournament, put up 20 points on Tennessee. Also put up over 22 points or more in 3 of his final 4 games. Like I said, he's a great scorer, The surface is only being scratched there, but defensively, he may very well be the best defensive player in this draft.
You know, I do think he's the best defensive player in the draft. He's probably one of the most unique players in this draft, too. His NBA comp is Draymond Green. The size and all of that looks really similar. His role, at least defensively, is going to be really similar, too. But I don't know what his role necessarily is at the NBA. You know, he's 6'7" and he projects as a small ball big, but even 6'7" is a little bit undersized for that. You know, his swing skill is going to be offense and shooting, right? He made 14 jump shots all season long. That's it. There's no court spacing there with him. That's going to really hamper teams on offense. So as unique as he is and good of a passer he can be, and he's a really good passer out of like short roll situations, does that make up for the lack of perimeter offense? And I'm not sure that it does. So those are some of the most interesting prospects, I think, in the draft. We've got 5 more that I think are really interesting that could be workout warriors that rise up draft boards. We got to keep an eye on them. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. Skip the first 5 guys we covered, but the next 10 that we're going to cover, the last 5 that we covered, the next 5 coming up, who do you like the most? Or pick one from each kind of segment in today's show. Let me know in the comments down below. For your second listen, it's Locked On Saints. Ross Jackson making sense of everything black and gold over at the Locked On Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's keep going here. 5 more prospects. I think these guys are really interesting. Maybe should the Pelicans trade back into the first round, which you never know. So let's look, a guy we talked about the other day, Carter Bryant of Arizona here. Where'd my video go? There it is.
Not necessarily long on productivity, but long on potential. Carter Bryant enters the NBA draft, and he is getting a lot of really good reviews. I'm Mike Luke from Locked On Wildcats. All right, Carter Bryant only averaged 6-4 this year, as a lot of people know, but shot over 40% from three-point range, measured it in over 6'6", with an almost 6'11" wingspan. An incredibly good kid as well that is going to interview well, and somebody that has been known by scouts for a long time, a McDonald's All-American. He fits in about anywhere, but worst case scenario, he's a 3-and-D player, and I think that's what really, really intrigues NBA scouts, is that this is a guy that you can pencil in and you know exactly what you are going to get from him. Could he be an all-star? Maybe. But worst case scenario, he's going to be somebody that's going to average in double figures, and he is going to be a very, very good part of any winning basketball culture.
So Carter Bryant, by the way, is 17th on the big board here. I think his top end NBA comp is Trevor Ariza. The big swing skill for him, I'm going to get more specific on this one, is movement shooting. He's a really good catch and shoot player, but can he do it off of movement? And I'm not sure that he can. If he can prove that, this is a guy that's going to be able to be a very good scorer at the NBA level. 18, Jace Richardson from Michigan State here. 19 is Cedric Coward. We've looked at him a little bit as well. 20, Neat Clifford from Colorado State. Let's get his scouting report.
What's not to like about Colorado State guard Neat Clifford? I'm Andy Patton, the co-host of the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Clifford did a little bit of everything last year for the Rams. In the competitive Mountain West Conference, Clifford averaged 19 points and 9.5 rebounds per game for Colorado State, shooting nearly 38% from 3 on about 5 attempts per game. Clifford is a gifted passer as well. He is a go-to scorer who can do it at all 3 levels, and he held his own in a physical conference defensively as well. Clifford may be an older prospect, which could concern some of the rebuilding teams in this draft class, but any franchise that is in win-now mode should be all over adding this versatile do-it-all guard to their roster, as he can contribute to winning basketball at the NBA level from day one.
He's the type of guy that I do think is going to make an immediate impact on a rookie and is better taken later in the draft for a team that's not rebuilding his age. He'll be 23, a little bit over 23 on draft night here, but he is very much a do-it-all guard, do-it-all wing here, and I really like him. His NBA comps are Chris Middleton, Josh Hart. He's interesting because playing at Colorado State in not a great conference doesn't look good. And you look at someone like David Roddy, right, who's kind of a do-it-all guy too, but played down to, didn't had played against subpar competition in college and hasn't really been able to carve out like a full-on NBA role because of that. Like his swing skill in a weird way is like the competition he played against in college. But there's a lot to like there. And if you give him a smaller role, particularly against backups, I think he's really going to be able to thrive. So he's 20 on the big board. 21 is Asa Newell from Georgia. This is someone I'm starting to pay more attention to. Here's more.
Asa Newell is the best rim protector in the draft and potential 3-point threat in the NBA. This is Clint Chamberlain, Locked On Bulldogs, your team every day. I'm here talking about Asa Newell and how he will go high in this draft because not only can he protect the rim, he is smooth and athletic and finishes in the paint. He has incredible defensive ability. Not only can he go on the outside and D somebody up straight off the three-point line, he could go down low and hold his own. And lastly, he has a touch and a skill that the three-point is coming in his arsenal, that when he starts knocking those down consistently, as he showed in flashes at Georgia, he's going to be dynamic and a problem matchup for any NBA team. Your team getting Asa Newell has an absolute defensive player of the year candidate from day one, and somebody who could translate very soon into an offensive nightmare matched up against a big on the other team. Asa Newell, fantastic pickup out of Georgia.
He feels like he's going to be a steal later in the NBA draft, I think, as well. You start to find real value picks here the kind of further you get down just outside of the lottery. I think there's going to be a lot of really good NBA role players at the very least. Newell's an interesting one because he's kind of caught between positions. He's not a full-time 5 in the NBA, and I don't think he's polished enough to be a 4 when it comes to the shooting or some of the offensive skill that you need. That puts him in a weird spot, right? Top-end NBA comps range from everything from Naz Reid to Jonathan Isaac to David Lee, if y'all remember him. His swing skill is going to be that three-point shot. The defense can be there. He can, he's not quite a springy big. It's worth keeping an eye on him, though. 2 more players to go with some interesting NBA comps, I think, as well. Next up is Thomas Sorber from, hold on, let's keep running through. Will Riley is 22 on the big board. Thomas Sorber is 23 out of Georgetown on the list. Let's go for more.
Thomas Sorber is a throwback big at 6'10", 255. The problem is that the NBA isn't often looking for throwback bigs that can't stretch out beyond the three-point line. So the question NBA front offices are going to have to answer, does everything else Sorber brings to the table, which is a lot, negate the lack of shooting? Because in his lone season at Georgetown, Sorber scored 14.5 points to go with 8.5 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.5 steals, and 2 blocks a game. So while the three-point shooting at 16.2% and the lack of modern big lateral mobility are massive concerns, the combo of Sorber's adept passing out of multiple situations, his rim protection, his motor, and his touch around the rim, those are going to be more than enough for an NBA team to want to snatch him up. There's also the issue of his season-ending foot surgery at Georgetown this year. That always scares me with bigs, so we'll keep our eyes on that. But if the three-point shot can develop, Thomas Sorber could be one of the steals of this draft.
I think his NBA comp is Jonas Valanciunas, someone we all know pretty well here in New Orleans. His swing skill is going to be perimeter defense. He can be a little bit lumbering. You need to be able to have some of that switchability. That's what teams are really looking for in NBA players. And while Valanciunas is useful, right, you don't quite see him anchoring a team or being in demand as much as you would like. 24 on the list is Danny Wolf here, and we're going to get to 25 on the Locked On NBA big board, and that's Yaxel Lendeborg from Alabama, Birmingham. He's a really interesting prospect. Let's get the breakdown on him.
Yaxel Lendeborg's extremely productive college basketball career is a great sign for his professional aspirations. I'm Andy Patton, the co-host of the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Lendeborg averaged nearly 18 points and 11 rebounds per game last year for UAB. And while he's committed to Michigan in the transfer portal, his nose for the basketball, strong touch around the rim, and developing outside game make him a tantalizing NBA draft prospect. And that's not even including his 4.2 assists per game last year. Lendeborg can be used as a connecting big thanks to his high basketball IQ and his tenacious rebounding, physicality, and three-level scoring make him a very high upside prospect despite being on the older end for players in this draft class.
I think his NBA comp is probably Tari Eason. The swing skill is going to be the shooting, and if he can do that, and also playing not against like top level competition with it, and his age is going to hurt him a little bit, but all interesting prospects. There you go. 15 prospects in under 30 minutes here with the scouting reports from the local and national experts that only Locked On can provide. So that's it. That's it for the show. Real simple. I didn't do a whole lot of talking in this one. Made my life kind of easy. I appreciate y'all so much for listening to Locked On Pelicans. This whole week of Locked On Pelicans. More coming next week when it comes to the draft, and we'll bring some guests on as well to break down these prospects even more. I'm looking forward to it. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and I'll see y'all next week.